Possibly my second favorite third-party library in Python is Flask. And what this does is it provides a lightweight web framework for building web applications. So we can create web pages that our Python programs are able to interact with or populate with data. They could populate a web page with data. We could retrieve data from a web page, from a user, from the URL, all sorts of things. And so I've really liked Flask. There's a variety of other web frameworks in Python that are usable, and each one has its own many use cases. But I'd like to start this web framework discussion with Flask and show you some of the basics, and perhaps later down the road we can add to that and introduce other web frameworks in Python. So the main components of Flask, after we import it, is that we have the namespace, the core instance there, and that assigns our app, if you will. So just some things that we need to do to get Flask going. And then we have what's called a decorator, and we don't discuss those in this course, at least not up to this point. We might later, but that essentially is a wrapper for a function. So Flask will take this home function, for example, and run it through its own function, kind of as a parameter. It will take what's in home here, this return render template, and it will do some stuff with it. And that's this @ symbol means this line app route / is a decorator. So it takes that home function and then Flask does some stuff to it. And that's ultimately some of the magic of what makes Flask work. And then the request component of Flask will get data from a client. We could look at forms. If a client submits a form on a web page that we've created, we could input that into our program with the request object. And render template helps us to render HTML templates. It helps us to integrate HTML into our Python and render what that would look like. So we could have Python variables being output into HTML on our web page. So here in this example, we have just one route or one page, if you will, and that's just /. So if you go to a page, www.example.com, for example, and it's not example.com/about or /resources, it's just example.com. / is implied. Then that's what this route would be. So we could set various routes for like /home. We could have another function. We could have /about or /contact, etc. But this / is saying I'm going to return what we'll call home. We'll return home HTML. So that's our root, a root of the web page. And then we're just running it, app.run. That runs our Flask app. And that's most of what there is to Flask. So let's take a look at that in practice and create a very basic Flask app.